Welcome to New Awakenings with Edgar Casey's A.R.E. We're together through some incredible conversations, and we will go on fantastic journeys of discovery that might shape the way you think about things and could even change your life.
Today we're tackling a very popular topic in this space, the Tarot. And our guest today has studied, read, and taught the Tarot for over 50 years, so you know that her information is rock solid. Her eclectic background allows her to bring diverse spiritual elements and practices to her readings, giving her a very unique perspective, and she also teaches and leads workshops in charm casting, creating vision boards, and pendulum design and dowsing. I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Rusa Harju. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Tarot is a stalwart, right? When you think about psychic fairs or things like that, or New Age movement, the Tarot has been around for a very, very long time. It's what you think of, crystals, Tarot, things like that, right? So my biggest question, and I know we're going to go deep into it, and you're graciously going to be giving us a quick little mini reading later on, so we're excited about that. But when a reader uses the cards, do the cards have the messages in them themselves, or is the Tarot, are the cards actually just a gateway for your intuition to come through?
Both.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Well, let's even start before that. What are tarot, or however you pronounce it? What are the cards?
Okay, well, they are not as old as people think they are.
Okay.
People think, oh, ancient Egypt, all that stuff. The first deck they have on hand is from about mid-1400s in Italy, and it was a card game. But with any kind of game, they turn into divination tools. And so these cards, this particular deck, the Waite Smith deck, is one of the most popular ones there is. And this one came out in about 1910, so it's public domain. And it's very different from the earlier cards. And they were designed to be a gateway. They were designed that each symbol opens you up, but you don't need to be working on your psychic development. You can read the cards just by noting the symbol. You know, the Emperor's card number 4, that's stability and structure. He corresponds with the sign of Aries. The rams show you that. So there's hints in all the cards. And so it's basically, the messages are in the cards. You hear from spirit. It opens you psychically. If you do a little ritual before you read, like I do, opens you psychically. So it comes at you from all different angles.
Okay.
And you mentioned something I was going to ask about. You said you do a ritual before you start.
I do.
What is that like, and do you have to do one?
No, you don't. That's one thing that drives me nuts, is there's so many weird myths about tarot. You know, like you can't buy your own deck. That's nonsense.
Okay.
If you had to wait till someone gave you one, you'd never
I've been
get
waiting all this time.
and no one's ever
Now you can
gifted
buy
you
No
one.
one's giving one.
Right.
If anyone's out there,
No,
I need a deck.
you can go to the gift store or the bookstore.
They have some really nice ones. But yeah, you don't, none of that. You know, don't let other people touch your cards. I let other people touch my cards all the time. There's a lot of silly myths about it. But the same thing with the ritual beforehand. Some people say, oh, well, you have to cut the cards 3 times
With your left
and
hand.
then this, and you know. That's what happened is somebody saw someone else's ritual and didn't understand why they were doing it. So there's a lot of that nonsense, like that old story about the family who every time they had a pot roast, they cut a piece off, put it to the side. And for like 2 generations, and then somebody said, why are we doing that? They asked the great-grandmother, and she said, oh, when I was first married, my pot was too small. So it's just doing something without knowing why.
Right.
So a ritual is to set you up. For example, I always use cloth. I make cloths, I sell cloths. I never put my cards on a blank bare table because, first of all, I don't know what's been on that table.
Sure.
And secondly, when I see this, it starts to ratchet me right into the alpha state, which I want to be in order to read. So when I see this, it's like you seeing the table set for dinner. You know, it's time to eat. I know it's time to read.
Got it.
Okay.
So it puts you in the mind space.
Absolutely. And that's the start. And then before each reading, I do a little breath work. I have a certain hand motion that helps me get in the alpha state. It's something I've trained myself to do over the years. So immediately I'm in the alpha state. I do a quick little intentional prayer. I ask my ancestors, I ask the goddess, I ask all beings of light to help make my reading as accurate and helpful as possible, for the highest good of all concerned. Right. Just that's my ritual. Other people do all, whatever works for them, cutting the cards, knocking the cards. There's a lot of different things you'll see people do. And if they've worked that out themselves, it's great. If they're just copying someone else, it's really not very helpful.
Right. Now, it can't hurt, though, to incorporate some of those.
Does it hurt at all? I love the aesthetics. I keep my cards in a box wrapped in silk. Do you have to do that? No. But I like the tradition of it. I like the aesthetics as well. I clean my cards with selenite in between each reading.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that at home if I have like a one-on-one, but if I'm at a psychic fair, I'll do it for a minute.
Can you hold that up so we can see it?
Sure.
How cool this is. So this is selenite?
Selenite.
And what does that do for the cards?
Selenite cleans anything. I'm a very lazy person. So if I'm going to clean my cards, I'm not going to stand there and wave 78 cards over Palo Santo. I'm just not going to do that.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's too much.
A lot of time.
And I make jewelry, but I buy a lot of vintage jewelry at estate sales. And I don't know who's worn it. Come home, just put it on my selenite. I don't have to do any other kind of cleansing. I don't even have to cleanse the selenite. It cleanses itself. So it's just really handy. And, I'm not going to smudge stuff all the time. I'm not going to put it in a bowl of salt and forget it.
Put it outside in the moonlight and the full moon.
And all that. It's just too much work.
If only it would clean the bathrooms. So put it in there, you come back the next morning, it's all
Have
clean.
you tried?
I haven't tried.
If it had a possibility, I would have tried. Trust me.
It'll clean the energy of the bathroom, possibly.
Yeah, it's
So the cards are, you mentioned a gateway. To a large extent, the Rider-Waite it's the traditional deck, right? That's what everybody.
It's the most popular deck there is.
Okay.
It's not traditional as in old, but it's
right. But it's the one that people most think of when they think tarot.
They do, and most modern decks are based on it.
Okay.
There are a couple of different, like the Crowley deck's a little different, and the Artisan Tarot's a little different, but 98% of your decks, even the novelty ones, are based on the Waite deck.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to ask about the novelty ones because I saw like a Britney Spears tarot deck.
Yeah.
Will that work?
I have a couple because they're pretty, and I have the Buffy the Vampire Slayer one because I wanted to see Spike. But it could work. I wouldn't use them because this deck has a depth of symbolism that those decks aren't going to have. I think they're just for fun.
Right. You bring up a good point because symbols are powerful. So when you say that they act as a gateway, the symbols themselves might bring something out based on the symbolism. We talk about sacred geometry and all that kind of stuff. There is something to be said about, I don't want to say traditional, but the Rider-Waite for me, whenever I see it, it elicits a certain response. Where if I pick up the Britney Spears deck, it's not going to give me that same response. It's going to.
It doesn't have the gravitas.
It doesn't have the gravitas. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this was developed for that. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, who was the artist, were members of the Golden Dawn. And the Golden Dawn was a magical society back in Victorian times. And it was, a lot of rich, British guys.
Sure.
So they had like a magical brotherhood, I guess, called the Golden Dawn, and this incorporated a lot. They're the first ones who, in modern times, correlated the tarot and the Kabbalah, and tarot and astrology. So every single card has an astrological correspondence. The major arcana, which is the 22 cards, like the Emperor and the Tower, they either correspond to a sign of the zodiac or a planet. The minor arcana, each of the 4 suits, Pentacles, corresponds to earth, cups corresponds to water, swords corresponds with air, and wands correspond with fire, although there's a little controversy about that.
Sure.
There's a lot of controversy in tarot.
Sure.
Yeah,
Just
everybody thinks they're right.
Starting with how you pronounce tarot or tarot,
Yeah.
tarot or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time.
Lots of
Carrot.
Tarot.
Tarot.
Rhymes with carrot, yeah. But Jung studied the tarot.
Ah.
And we use a lot, or at least I do, use a lot of his terminology when I read. You know, the cards fall how they're supposed to fall, that synchronicity. The major arcana cards are all archetypical images, and that's another reason they have power. You know, when you see the hermit, you see the wise man who gives you information. When you see death, you have an impact from that card.
And yet, if I'm not mistaken, death is not a negative card. It's
No.
just a transition, right? It's change.
It's a transition that's so intense
Right.
that it's as if you died and were reborn. It's that kind of a transformation. It's
Okay.
huge.
Right.
So does it make a difference if they're upside down or right side up? And following up to that, upside down or right side up to the reader or to the readee?
That's another controversy.
Ah.
People will tell you different things. Some people don't read reversals at all. Yeah, that's when they're upside down. I do, because there's 78 cards. If you read reversals as well, then you've got whatever that is, 156 or whatever it is.
Sure.
So to me, yeah, reversals can mean the opposite, or they can be like when a planet's retrograde. You know, whatever that change is, whatever that energy is, it's taking a little longer to manifest.
Gotcha.
So I read it as facing me because it would just be too much mental gymnastics to
Sure.
And it's like reading a book. It's right in front of me. So that's how I do it. Some people don't read reversals at all. And you know, everyone has different opinions.
Okay.
And you do what works for you. You know, if your readings are helpful and accurate, that's what counts. If your client is satisfied,
Sure.
that's what counts.
So can anyone just pick up a deck and start reading right off the bat? Or is there a special type of training you have to have?
You need to practice. I mean, you can't just throw them down and do. See, there's 3 ways to read. There is this is what the card means, this is what the card means in this position. You know, that's a very, straightforward, you use the little book till you have it all memorized. Another way to read is just to look at the pictures and make up stories. So you have your book learning, you have your intuitive, and then you have the way I do it, which is a hybrid. So I know what the cards mean, but I also have flexibility in that, each time I look at a card, I might notice a different symbol. And so that would shift the meaning for me a little bit.
Okay. So it's not as easy as just looking at because I know the weight deck actually has descriptors of each card and what it means.
Oh yeah, those little white books.
So somebody might be seeing the deck and reading
Yeah.
from it. It's perfectly fine, but the more you use it, the more
More I
in
get.
depth
It's
the message will
practice.
get.
And when I was learning, what I did was go to a lot of different readers so I could see how they did it, because everybody had different methods. Some people would just randomly pull cards and not do spreads. Some people do spreads, some people don't do spreads. Some people have the querent pick a card. There's so many different ways to do it. You do what works for you. To me, the most important thing about a reading is people come to you, and some people are scared. They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I don't want to hear anything bad. And to me, a reading should be empowering. So if you couldn't do something about what your reading says, why get one? But to me, if you know, first of all, you're forewarned. And second, tarot tells you potentials. The way things are right now, these are the energies in play. These are the forces in play. If you like how that's going, you keep going that way. If you don't like how it's going, let's explore how you can change it, or at least get a lesson out of it, to have it be of benefit to you. So no one should leave a reading feeling scared or nervous or anything but empowered and positive.
See, I love that intention that you're putting behind your readings, but we all know that there are people out there that are making a quick buck.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of our audience, they don't know how to tell between someone who is legit, like you, you've been doing it forever, you're obviously very well educated and well versed, and someone who's just trying to make a quick buck. How can you tell? How can you protect yourself as someone going to get a reading?
Yeah. That is like one of the most frustrating things, because I think when people come to for you for a reading, I mean, sometimes it's for fun, like at the fairs here, but most of the times people come to you because they have a problem or they have a worry, a concern. And so to me, to take advantage of someone's vulnerability like that is just awful. I would say the big thing is how they talk to you. Yeah, are they trying to scare you, or are they trying to help you find a way out of whatever situation you're in? You know, because I watch myself too when I read, because I have a tendency, if I look at the card that says to do this, oh, you should, and then I stop, because that's one thing I hate people saying to me, you should. So I always try to say, it would serve you best too, or you might do well too.
Right.
You know, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just telling you what the cards say.
Right.
So if they are trying to steer you in a direction, and then there's the fear thing. I mean, some of the stuff people believe. I knew a woman once who, she'd had a horrific year. I mean, her brother was murdered. She was 30. She had a hysterectomy. Her house burned down. Her mom died. But she had this year from hell. And she went to a reader. This is before I ever knew her. And the woman told her she was cursed. And if she gave her $500, she would, burn it and take it off. And she, under normal circumstances, would never, ever have fallen for that.
Right.
But her life, she was just so damaged then.
Desperate.
Yeah, and that's, to me, the worst thing someone can do.
That's terrible.
Piggybacking off the fear topic, there are some people that feel that tarot cards and things like that maybe aren't from the light side of things. What would you say to someone that says, oh, this is like a demonic thing or something like that?
I've had people say that.
Yeah.
Actually, here once I was reading and some woman ran into the reading room and said, please, 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 can you convince me they're not of the devil?
Wow.
And they're not. I mean, the old decks are all church symbols. The Hierophant was originally the Pope. The High Priestess was Pope Joan. I tell people, if you're nervous about it, go get an angel deck. Get something that makes you feel better. It's a tool to help people. There's nothing demonic about it at all. And some people, they're just not going to believe you because they're locked into that particular mindset.
Right.
But I think when you talk to people about, well, these cards mean this, and they are to help you navigate through life. Because you don't even have to be spiritual to use tarot cards. You can use them as a psychological tool. You can use them for personal development. Right. You don't have to have any sort of spiritual beliefs whatsoever, and you can still read tarot.
That's good to know. But I would still like to have a spiritual belief before you do this.
So I hear the different readers talk about different spreads. How many spreads are there?
Thousands.
Really?
There's
like
there's thousands of cards.
Like how many card range? Is it from like 2 to 50 or like how?
Oh, there's way more than that.
And some people use all the cards, right?
And
in a single spread or in a single reading?
And you don't have to use a spread either. You can just put cards down randomly. What I do sometimes at the end of a reading is I just fan the cards and have people pick a few randomly so that they're getting more involved. But yeah, there's loads and loads of spreads. There's a few famous ones like the Celtic Cross, or I do an astrological spread that I like a lot. But there's so many. And you can buy whole books just full of tarot spreads. Like 110 tarot spreads, 50 tarot spreads. You can.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
See, to me, I just overwhelms me.
It's a lot.
I just here's the 3 cards, or here, maybe I'll do a Celtic Cross or something like that. But anything other than that, it's just like, I had a reading done once where it kept pulling cards. Like, when is it ever going to end? So it was just too much for me. So.
Is it?
Yeah, well, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the great thing with this is it corresponds to so much. If you're weak on tarot, but you know astrology, you've got that tie-in. If you're weak on tarot, but you have numerology, you got that.
Right.
There's a book, this big, by, what's her name, T. Susan Chang, that's all correspondences. There is a correspondence for every card. There's, it's a zodiac, there's this, that, but there's also a music note for each card. There's a crystal for each card. There's just anything you can think of. There's a Hebrew word for each card. There's just so many correspondences. I've been doing this, I got my first deck when I was 11. And I'm 71. And so I learn stuff every day. You know, every day I learn more and more.
How accurate are the readings? Like, I mean, like how detailed can they get?
It can get insanely accurate, but a lot depends on the input, too. You know, because a tarot reading should be a conversation. You know, you don't just sit there passively.
Right, like those people who come in and goes, okay, you're the psychic, tell me about me. Right?
Oh yeah, that's the worst. I'm like, you want to waste your time and your money? Fine, yeah. The cards always fall how they're supposed to fall. It will, if you start doing it, it will always amaze you. It's like funny sometimes, the way they fall. It's like, oh yeah, could you be more blatant? They always fall how they're supposed to fall. We, however, may not interpret them correctly.
Oh.
Yeah, so, yeah, sometimes I have no problem with asking. I think this means this. Does that mean anything to you, or do you think it could be something different? Because it should be a conversation. And the idea, too, is the person there's levels of openness.
Sure.
When you do a reading with someone, you link on a subconscious level. You know, that's why I prefer in person to, you know, over the phone or Zoom, even though we know time and space is just an illusion.
Right.
Sure.
It's just, you know, you feel more of that connection when you're next to someone. So anyway, you're picking up from their subconscious. Your subconscious knows, basically, the way things are going, what's going to happen to you.
Right.
And what happens is the reading articulates it for you. You should be sitting there. It should resonate like, oh, I know that, because you knew it. They're just pulling it out and, like I said, articulating it for you.
It's just giving you information that you should already know and then helping you to move it forward.
Right. And that's the big thing, too, is, you know, what do you want to do with it?
Right.
You know, if ever all your cards look great, yay. You know, if you do and you say, oh yeah, there's a little, you know, issue here, you know, with some family issues, then you take the card, you do a new spread on how can I best, you know, alleviate these issues? How can I best bring harmony to my family? Okay. So, you know, just you keep working till you get to the result you want.
Well, before we started recording, you graciously offered to do a small little reading for us.
Right.
I think Karen had a question that she was going to ask.
I did. Well, first my question is, so you said like yes or no, but could you do like a 3-card spread? Is this table too small for that? Like,
I can
is
do
there
a
a
3-card.
3-card?
3-card we could do for yes or no. You could do past, present, future.
Let's do past, present, future. Can we do past, present, future?
So I always have the person ask me the question. Some readers don't like that. But I find people don't know what to ask sometimes, or they just kind of ask in a wrong way. For example, you know, should I move here or there? It's like, we got to do one at a time. And you don't want to say, should I? That's a yes or no. You want to say, what are the benefits? Or how will I fare if I move to this place? What are the benefits? You know, how will it work out if I work there?
Okay.
So you want to keep it open, but not too much. You know, like, when will I find love? You know, people say, oh, I'm looking for a relationship. When will I find love? You could go adopt a puppy. I mean, that's, you know.
Right.
If you can, so you want to be open, but specific to it. It depends.
Okay.
Okay, so what exactly did you want to ask?
Well, so I'm kind of in the process of starting a new business, and I'm just wondering. I mean, it's a little more challenging than I thought it would be, but I'm wondering, is this something that can ultimately be successful? Am I asking that incorrectly?
That would be good. So will my business ultimately be successful? Let's give it a time frame, though.
Okay.
Like within a year, within 2 years, 3 years, because you know,
say
if it's
within a
40
year.
years from now, you don't care.
Well, that's
Right,
true.
right.
I'll still be here, barely
Yeah.
laid in my bed.
Yeah.
Is it working? No. Let's say a year.
Okay, so will your business be successful
Within a
to the
year.
degree you want within the year? I'm going to give you the cards
Okay.
and ask you to shuffle them with that question in mind. And I always tell
rolling up my
people
sleeves.
they're an awkward size.
Okay.
So don't feel you have to look good.
Well, I'm awkward, so it's perfect.
Well then.
And you always look good.
And I just rolled up my sleeves because, it's hard work. Just once?
As many till you feel they're ready.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I told you, you don't have to look good. They're just a little bigger than usual. Okay, so this works the way tossing coins would work. There's a Yoruba system of divination where they toss pieces of coconut, and if they're white or black, if there's two or three whites, it's yes. If there's two or three blacks, it's no. So this is the same way except with reversals and upside down, upright. All right. I give it longer than a year. The good thing about tarot cards is this is a solid no, because you got 3 reversed. But the cards give us insight into what's going on. Okay? The lovers love this card. It's a Gemini card. People look at it, they say, oh, soulmates, all that. It's more of a Jungian concept of individuation. The male half, the female half combine in order to know the higher self. So this says in your business, you really don't have a secure knowledge of where you want to go with it ultimately. That there's more looking inward you have to do to find out why it's not happening. This is the card of dissatisfaction. So until you know exactly what you want, you're not going to find satisfaction until you know exactly who you are as a business person. And then the final outcome is I would not depend on it for my income for the next year, because this is the card of having lots of money and you have it reversed. So it would not be super financially profitable within the next year. The way to improve that is through self-knowledge, through bringing together all the different parts of yourself that you're trying to express with this. And self-knowledge, that's the most important thing. To have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed to know exactly what it is you want. Okay, because even if you were financially successful, which we don't see, it wouldn't be satisfying to you yet. You don't have it exactly how you want it.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
It really makes sense, yes. It does.
Knowing what I know, it makes fantastic sense to me. And it is like, and not exactly what we wanted to see, but it makes perfect, it is absolutely what we should have expected to see.
And the thing is, you have a path you can follow. You know that this is what you have to work on. This card, if this were my reading, I would take this card, if I had a deck, or you could print, these are public domain. They're all over the place. You could just print it offline, and I would hang it around my house as a vision board to remind me to explore myself more. Because, the male half, the female half, the angel. The male represents your conscious mind, woman's your subconscious mind, the angel is the superconscious. The only way you can get any kind of spiritual enlightenment is through the inner self. That's why the man's looking at the woman, woman's looking at the angel. So this is the whole Jungian process of individuation. He said that's why we're here, to know ourselves completely. And so that's taken all your shadow, your light, all those parts, and coming to understand them so you can move forward.
Now, taking something you said earlier, this, like you mentioned, this is a solid no. Within this next year, that was a question that Karen asked.
Right.
However, you did mention that this is malleable, so it could potentially change within a month and be a totally
I wouldn't say a month,
but
I would say in 3 or 4 months you could ask again.
Okay. But if I make these changes here and look in myself and make sure I have because I'm not a business person per se, so I'm sure I'm missing a lot of T's that I need to cross and I's I need to dot.
Yeah, and
get
but
that
there's things you
situated.
can do.
Yeah.
You can, because it's not just knowing about the business, but knowing, what parts you're going to hate. Because there are parts that are the pits. You have to deal with the financial, you have to deal with all those other things, and getting good advice.
Right.
I look on SCORE on their website all the time when I want information on how to run a business, that sort of thing. So there's things out there you can learn, but this is more within yourself. Okay, it's not just that, but knowing which aspects you would hate. Like I hate marketing. I hate putting myself out there. Go, hi, you want to come? It just embarrasses me. But other people love that part, and they hate, the financial part, or they hate, different other parts. So knowing what you want to deal with and what you don't.
All right, that is very good to know.
This is spot on. Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this for us, as well as thank you for coming and helping us to get a grip, to understand a little bit better the power of the tarot cards.
So much to it.
There is
so much to it. So.
And that's what's great about it, is, you'll never get bored. There's always more to learn.
Now, I know you said you don't like marketing, so we're going to do it for you. If someone wants to reach out to you to have a reading done, to learn, to attend a workshop or something, how's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, lots of ways. I have a website, rusareads.com. I have a Facebook page that tells you what's coming up.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
And my pleasure.
It was a pleasure to meet you. We look forward to learning more about the tarot with you in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
That does it for this episode of New Awakenings with Edgar Casey's A.R.E. Thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any part of this or any of our other interviews, you can always catch them all at edgarcasey.org. Go to the resources page, you'll see them all laid out there for you as well. For now, we bid you adieu. Until next time, I'm Will, this is Karen. We'll see you on the next episode of New Awakenings with Edgar Casey's A.R.E.
Bye.